Hey everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark. Joining me this week are the usual suspects, Nessie and John. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
They both did it, and like in stereo too. That's fantastic. I also wanted to take a moment to say hi to everyone who's here in the chat already. I see Lady Leaf Underhill, X Factor 04, Jess Britbeck, Jaded Redhead, Newt Rock, Lady Starfall, Muhammad Akrat, Wingsy, our resident Squeezebox engineer, Danny McKay. I see Beth, Danny McKay. I think I'm Tony. My mom. Oh, she changed her name. I see Kate Bertinsky as well. Just popped in. Aaron M. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming and thanks for indulging me while we talk about what I consider to be a classic of 1980s fantasy storytelling, which might not be saying much because a lot of fantasy movies from the 1980s were not that great. But this, for me, is a major exception to that. I love this movie. You guys have probably heard me say it before that my oldest daughter is named Elora for the princess in this movie. So yeah, that having been said, I'm going to go with Young Crone, as in like Carl Jung. First time checking out this channel, happy to be here. We're very happy to have you.
Welcome.
Yeah, you might find our format to be a little bit different than other people's. We tend to fly off the rails and meander off the topic a lot, but that's part of our charm. So hope you enjoy yourself. Thanks for coming. So, Willow, directed by Ron Howard, released in 1988, starring Val Kilmer, Joanne Whaley, and Warwick Davis. And I don't think any of them were really famous yet when they did this movie. Is like maybe Billy Barty might have been the most famous actor who plays the High Alwyn, and it's just because he was a working little person actor, so he had a lot of exposure through that.
Well, Val had just come off of Top Gun, so he had a lot of exposure from that.
Okay, fair. Right?
Yeah. Iceman.
Yeah, I will say that it was a trip for me as soon as Billy Barty came on, because I'd forgotten he was in this. I mean, obviously it made sense, but there's just no mistaking his voice from Masters of the Universe, which is like a childhood guilty pleasure of mine. So,
right on. Well, one of the things that I noticed, and I guess I'm going to start with maybe a top-down view of the story as a whole. I really felt George Lucas's influence on this film. Yes, it's directed by Ron Howard, but it is produced by George Lucas, and I feel like it's got his fingerprints on it in a lot of good ways, and maybe in a couple ways that were not as good. I love this movie, love it from my childhood, but when I just rewatched it, there are certain things I think I had a greater appreciation for, and other things where I went, yep, this is what 12-year-old me loved, for sure. John, did you have an experience at all like that?
I mean, I watched the. I mean, obviously, I had seen it as a kid, but when I really, but my memory of actually watching it and enjoying it came from back around, I want to say 2000, 2001. I think it was in the lead up to Lord of the Rings, and I was watching a lot of fantasy stuff. And at that age, I think I was about like 17 or around 17. And there was some stuff that even then was a little childish for me, but there was a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed. And I found that the ratio was about the same this time. But I mean, and I'm probably going to talk about this a lot in the stream, because for me it's the part of the movie that really I latch onto, and why I love it so much. The musical score ties everything together, so that, you know, even if there's parts that I might consider a little weaker or a little too childish, just that music just sort of guides you through the whole thing, and it's just a fun movie through and through. So, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I feel like I'd already become adjusted to the stuff that didn't work for me,
Right.
and I liked the movie regardless.
Right. Well, I think even some of the stuff that was a little bit sillier, I still think it worked, because much the same, and again, I said, I feel like George Lucas's fingerprints are on this. George Lucas made the perfect movie for 12-year-olds in 1977. This is not that far off from Star Wars in a lot of ways, anyway. Lady Starfall, what year did this movie come out? This movie was released in July of 1988. 1988.
Yeah, and doing my research on this, I saw where he actually had the idea for the movie, Lucas did, before Star Wars came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in a way, it does, the thought at least predates Star Wars.
Right. Like I heard somewhere that an early version of Star Wars, Luke came from a village of little people. So like you can already see that.
And instead we got Jawas. So
right. And Ewoks eventually.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ewoks.
Speaking of
the most famous Ewok in the world. Is, if you ask me, I mean, I guess he's ostensibly the star of the movie, although he is third billing in the credits, as Kelly Jaded Redhead pointed out.
He's the star, though.
He is the star. I mean, his name is, the title of the film.
Right. That's not always mean that you're the star of the movie.
No.
But yes. Although I will say, Val Kilmer's Mad Mardigan does everything he can to steal this movie in every scene he's in. I don't know if he quite pulls it off, but man, does he try! And I love what a great character.
Yeah, I was instantly reminded of why I loved him so much in this, and he has so many great one-liners.
He really does. I was considering starting off the stream with a Mad Mardigan quote, but I'll save it for later.
Well, I love him as a character actor. He's very versatile. Kilmer is. He's one of my favorite character actors. So I wasn't surprised that he could pull this role off with no trouble at all and have fun with it. You can tell he's having a lot of fun with this role. This is not like his serious stuff that he would do, or even his macho kind of stuff that he would do. He's just really just leaning into it and just having fun with this.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't though? What a great fun character to play. He gets a great arc throughout the film. He gets some of the best one-liners, and the way he sells Mad Mardigan's like incompetent competence is, I don't know. I love it. It's not a character you get a whole lot of in storytelling.
Yeah, well, because he can't play the big standard hero, so because that's Willow is in that position. Willow's the heart of the movie, and he is the hero, and so Mad Mardigan has to be this buffoon, the side guy who's kind of a buffoon, but also when push comes to shove, he's you can rely on him, and he's very good with the sword.
Right. I'm sorry. Just Britvec just hurt my feelings. Val was pretty when you were -1 years old. You just made me feel very, very old because this movie is from my early teen years. So yeah, we're not friends anymore. How do you kick?
Okay, just throw dirt on top of me then. Yeah, yeah. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, this is a little of the house vino that I'm sampling tonight. So yes, Errol, this is it.
Is that Feral Cat 2020?
No, this is the blackberry panty remover. So,
okay.
that's a family recipe. So
right.
that was passed down in his family.
Well, let me ask. I kind of rudely skipped over Nessie here, and I guess I shouldn't have. John, I asked you about your early experience and then your recent rewatch. So Nessie, what was your maybe original impression of the movie, and then what's your going back impression?
Well, I'll be honest, Stephen. I mean, I watched it when I was a little older than you guys, so I was say in my early to mid 20s when 88. So I was in college. I was in college when this came out, and as I recall, there was a bunch of us that would get together. We had our own little nerd social club, and Friday nights we would have a nerd movie themed social. And one night that was one of the themes. So there were really good times that I associate with this, very much like what we're doing right here. We're just getting together with a bunch of your nerdy friends, watching something that you're maybe your family wouldn't particularly care for, or even your significant other might not care for, but just getting together and having a great time. Nothing really serious, and just enjoying a movie together. So it was really a very positive experience. So it kind of take me back to my college days. Yes. Shout out to the Radford University Fantasy Role Players Guild.
Right on. Shout out. So I think part of maybe the reason that I enjoyed this movie so much when I was a kid, as most of you know, my gateway to nerd culture was through Dungeons and Dragons. So by the time this movie came out, I'd already been playing D&D for years. You want to answer Kelly there?
I attended, yes. I attended Radford. I didn't graduate from there, but I attended, yes.
Right on.
Probably because of those social parties.
Got you distracted too much, huh?
I played a lot of D&D, Stephen, and not a lot of going to class.
Hey, I played a lot of D&D, and I missed my fair share of class too. But yeah, so I watched this movie, and I was like, as the various magical effects are happening, I'm trying to decide what D&D spells they are. And I'm trying to assign, attribute points. What's Mad Mardigan's dexterity and stuff like that. So it really sucked me in that way. And given that I came to Lord of the Rings later, again, I watch more movies than read books by a long shot. So Willow was maybe the first fantasy epic where I felt really transported. Because, okay, maybe the effects don't hold up to 2020 standards. All right, not maybe. The effects do not hold up to 2020 standards in Willow. They just don't. But for its day and age, it was really, really well done. They're not immersion breaking bad. But, obviously they could use a fresh coat of paint. But I think a remaster of the effects on this movie might actually make it somewhat better. Okay, John.
Says nay.
I am not in the camp of fixing up effects. Just, you know, it's a 1988 movie. Leave it as is and just allow yourself to go back to that time.
Just go with it is what you're saying. Just accept it for what it is, appreciate it. It doesn't have to be epic like what we see now. But it was like Steven said, it was very good for its time. You know, we had, you know, a few decent fantasy movies that, you know, by that time, like say Dragonheart, that was pretty good. I mean, the story was, especially, but if you're looking at the effects, they're just not going to be there. So,
well, Dragonheart was in '95, so that actually came about 7 years after this.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Although, like, speaking of the special effects, and maybe this relates to the George Lucas thing because he's always trying to push the boundaries of special effects.
Yeah.
Yes, Mom actually just brought it up. The digital morphing technology, especially when Willow is trying to change Finn Rizal back into her normal form, and she transmutes through all these animal shapes. That technology was developed for that shot.
And so, I guess that's part of why I have this opinion. It's like you're not going to sit there and appreciate the breakthrough that those effects were if, you know, a little earlier in the movie you have a newfangled CGI shot that, you know, fixes up some other thing. For me, it devalues the achievement that the effects were at the time. And even if, you know, they don't measure up to what the current standard is, I still believe in appreciating things within the time that they were done.
That's a fair point. I think that's a fair point, John. You're right. You shouldn't go back and work on another artist's work after it's complete. I would love to see it with better effects. But I think I actually do agree with you. To do so would be very disrespectful to the original artists.
I will say that, you know, if Ron Howard decided he wanted to make an alternate version of Willow that had, you know, some improved effects, I guess my thing would be just so long as the original version of Willow remains intact and that's the main version of the film. You can tell I've been burned over the years by Star Wars.
Yeah, you've got a couple people agreeing with you. I see Young Crone and Ridiculous Ed are both agreeing with you.
There was some talk when I was doing my, you know, due diligence on this that when Disney picked it up, that they were kicking around not a reboot, but a story continuation of Willow and like a series that would probably center around Allura and, you know,
that's definitely part of the conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I want to fan cast that TV show.
Yeah. And it would be cool to see like a, you know, aged or, you know, Willow, and how far, you know, he may have gone with his magic. So it could be it could be interesting.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on hold. I'll go ahead and talk about it too. The last update I heard was maybe January of this year, where there were scripts written and Ron Howard is involved and Val Kilmer's been talking about it and Warwick Davis has been talking about it. Now, of course, with the world on you know, on low power mode right now, it's not going to happen really soon. But yeah, I think the desire is there on the creators and actors' part to do it.
And see, that's the opportunity that I would look to for an updated vision of Willow. If you did a follow-up, then you can take advantage of all the modern technology and tell a Willow story through the lens of 2020, or now it'll be 2021 at the earliest, but you know what I mean. So rather than going back to modify the original work, if they're planning to do a follow-up, that's the way to see what an updated Willow would look like.
Yeah, it's interesting that after all this time, it's still in the conversation. That this is something that they would even consider on the new streaming channel.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy when you think about it's a single movie from the late 80s that really, it wasn't a flop, but it was like it basically probably broke even at the box office. It turned a little bit of a profit, but not much. It's one of those
niche market, so to speak.
But it's one of those movies that sort of came into its own through the home video market, the same way like The Princess Bride did.
Right. Absolutely. So I guess it was they picked it up when they picked up the rest of the Lucasfilm catalog, so to speak. It's like, oh, here, by the way, we got this. So why not?
Well, and the thing is, for all of its silly moments, and it has them, and yes, that is something that detracted from the movie for me a little bit, was just how much silliness there was in some parts. But it's still a really excellent story, a really great way to tell the hero's journey in a non-standard way. Willow doesn't get he's not a great warrior. He's just a person over his head in the world trying to do what he feels is right and struggling with it, not always making what we might feel is the right choice, but in the end, letting his morality lead him to where he needs to be and ultimately make him a much better person for it.
Yeah, I will say regarding the silliness, also, keep in mind that this is 80s fantasy, and honestly, before Lord of the Rings, it was really not common for any type of fantasy story to have that level of. Not Lord of the Rings has its funny moments, but they're born out of sort of natural characterization. But it takes itself seriously, and that wasn't something that I think studios and filmmakers necessarily had the confidence to do with fantasy stories. And before Lord of the Rings came along, it was, I remember at the time, that's what was kind of remarkable about it, was that it felt like a serious take on the genre, and a lot of fantasy movies prior to that, Willow among them, you had to lace this kind of silly humor with the story.
Well, and again, that might be the Star Wars effect. But you're not wrong. There was fantasy was not allowed to take itself seriously in the 1980s, not fully.
Yeah.
They were just talking about Excalibur in the chat. That's the one that I think Lady Starfall was referencing, about a fantasy movie that was trying to take itself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Before, yes.
Well, Arthurian legend is a little bit different because it has a literary tradition in Europe, so it's low fantasy, if you will, whereas Willow is high fantasy. Trolls and dragons and magical spells and things like that. You don't get a whole lot of that in Arthurian legend. A little bit on the fringes, but.
And actually, while I'm bringing up Lord of the Rings, also, I did want to say one thing that I was able to appreciate this time around that I think I didn't last time. When I was watching it prior to Lord of the Rings coming out, there was this kind of feeling, I remember back then, that Willow was like Lord of the Rings light. Like it was kind of like, you've got smaller people as the protagonists. It's an epic fantasy story. But the thing is, that was a very surface level connection. But what's great is, because fantasy has become such a major thing in all the years since Lord of the Rings, and we've seen a wide range of different kinds of fantasy stories. I think now going back to watch Willow, I was able to appreciate that. No, it's very much its own story.
It is. I mean, it's got flavors of Lord of the Rings in there. The same way I feel like it's got some flavors of Star Wars mixed in. But
I think it has flavors of Indiana Jones mixed in.
You're probably right. I mean, again,
in the action sequences.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Indiana Jones and Madmartigan in that way.
Very much.
He's very capable, but then he'll slip on a banana peel and fall over, the way Indiana Jones occasionally does.
I will say that's just, it's one of my favorite parts of this movie, and I just, it's a classic movie moment overall. Just, when he comes out of the tent, sword swinging, the music is heroic. Willow says, "You are great," and then he slips and falls down.
And there's the banana peel.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's not technically actually banana peel, but you're right. He's
got physical humor.
Yes.
A lot of physical humor.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've kind of taken the larger look at the movie from the outside. Do you guys want to start talking about individual characters, or is there something else you want to bring up before we jump into that?
John,
you want to talk about the music? You want to talk about?
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you guys if you want me to wait on that, but
no, go right ahead.
All right. So the music is by James Horner, who unfortunately we lost a couple of years ago. He died in a plane crash, but he is one of the most famous film composers of recent recent generations, and he did music like Braveheart, Titanic, Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, and The Search for Spock. He's very famous, and his music for this film is right in that period of time where he was really making a name for himself in the 80s, and it's just what I love about his music is, it's not just that his music can be heroic like it is in this movie, but it's also, like all his scores, it's very touching and emotional. And I think he's a more emotional composer than, a lot of others. And what's interesting about this story, James Horner sort of has a reputation for being a self-plagiarizer, because a lot of his film scores feature very similar motifs. And I did want to mention first, for any music geeks who are familiar with his music, you'll notice that there's a 4-note danger motif that shows up in this film, which you can hear in a lot of his scores. It's kind of a ding-ding-ding kind of sound, and it's played with horns, and it's, you can hear it's in everything from this to Aliens to Star Trek to Avatar. It shows up in a lot of his scores, but it's really effective because you hear it and you think, oh, these are the bad guys. And what's great is for Willow's theme, there's also, let me bring it up right here. This is again kind of a commentary on his tendency to, shall we say, be inspired by things. I mean, he's a great composer, but he does tend to take inspirations from classical composers. And what's great about that is if you're going to be influenced by something, it might as well be by the greats. And so the main Willow theme actually has some similarities to Robert Schumann's Third Symphony. And that's the big heroic number, the one that, when Madmartigan comes out swinging his sword, or, yeah, exactly. It's just one of the most memorable, movie themes I think ever. And I'm also a big fan of the Elora Dunham theme, which is the sort of
theme.
Yeah. And the very soft, the most emotional piece in the score. And yeah, it's his score that really carries the movie for me because there's so much emotion in it. And that's the case with a lot of movies he scores. I can't imagine the movie without his music.
You ever heard of John Williams? He's pretty good too.
He is.
I heard that.
I actually felt shades of John Williams in this film, but it might just be that they were composing epic scores in a similar time. So, but
yeah, John Williams, I feel, and for the love of God, I am not talking smack about John Williams because he is one of my absolute favorites, and he probably is. If I were, there's a difference between what I would rank as best composer and favorite composer.
Right.
James Horner is my favorite composer, but John Williams, I think, is indisputably the best. Okay. And his music is just so magnificently constructed, and you get, it ranges from the epic to the intimate, and it can make you feel really powerful things. I think Horner makes you feel emotions more. His music tugs at your heartstrings, I think, a little bit more than John Williams does. But again, it depends on the movie. But I just know that whenever I hear that music from Braveheart, it's like it's gonna make me just bust out crying, especially when you get to that finale and the sword gets thrown up in the air. Mm-hmm. And you'd have the bagpipes and everything. It's so stirring and emotional. So, yeah.
All right, I'm with you. Well, what do you want to say? Anything maybe about the setting or the cinematography or sound editing? That's something I often go off on. Although, like, the sound editing was not noticeable in this movie, which is.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I did not. I just watched the movie this morning with my TV speaker, so I'm probably not in the best position to comment on the sound editing. I will say that this is the first time I saw the film in high definition, and the cinematography is gorgeous. It's a whole different ball game from watching the DVD version years ago, and what I loved about this is, and this is getting a little technical, so I'm putting, I already have my Lord of the Rings hat on, but I'm putting another nerd hat on top of it. When it comes to high definition remasters of older films, some studios have a really bad tendency of using what's called digital noise reduction, where they basically scrub away all the film grain because they think that people at home want to see a crystal clear picture. But it has the adverse side effect of making everybody look really waxy on the screen because all the detail has kind of been scrubbed away. Right. This, even watching on Disney Plus, I could see all the natural film grain, and it had a very filmic look. So they did a fantastic job bringing this movie to HD. And my hat's off to, whichever studio was responsible for it, because I think the HD master has been out for a number of years, but they did a great job with it, and the cinematography looked beautiful. And even with the dated effects, I did kind of love, even though, we talked about the brownies, the effects obviously look very dated with them, but what I loved was whatever that creature is at the end of the movie where they used like stop motion and
the two-headed creature.
The two-headed thing.
I loved seeing that because it reminded me of Return of the Jedi. When with the Rancor.
So you don't know what that movie is, that creature is called?
No.
Okay. That creature is called an Ebersisk.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
Do you know why it's called an Ebersisk?
I do not.
It is literally named to riff off of Siskel and Ebert, who are two film critics.
I love it.
And I'm not kidding. If you don't believe me, go look it up. You can find this out. It's actually a pretty well-known piece of trivia about that movie. But yes, Ron Howard kind of took a shot at a few different movie critics. I can't remember her first name, but her last name was Kale. And so General Kale is named after a film critic as well.
That completely went over my head. That is amazing. I love that.
I like it. I really do. That is funny.
But I will say, just, you know, I loved seeing, you know, where you can see, like, there's a shot of Mad Mardigan, you know, standing in front of the creature, and you can see that it's a, you know, a rear projection shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about. I don't want to see old effects updated because I get so much joy out of seeing those old effects. And,
right.
You know, and saying to myself, yeah, that's how they did it back in the day.
I think that might be my favorite Mad Mardigan moment in the film too, where he turns around and he's just like, and then he goes and jumping off the bridge to fight the monster. It's so good. I think that's Mad Mardigan kind of summed up. Just like, I'll do some early heroics. But yeah. I thought you might enjoy the Eber-Sisk thing there, John, just because I know you're young, but I'm sure you know who Siskel and Ebert are.
Absolutely. And, you know, even though over the years I certainly came to respect Ebert, because what was great about Ebert was if you actually read his reviews, he would, even if he disliked something, he'd talk about a movie in a way that you could sort of grasp whether or not you would like it. Mm-hmm. It's like he didn't make you automatically feel like you were going to hate something that he didn't like. But having said that, you know, Siskel and Ebert are kind of infamous for their whole thumbs up, thumbs down approach to movie reviewing. And so, yeah, that's just absolutely delightful. And that's just another thing I'm going to love about this movie, you know, when I watch it in the future.
Yeah. I'm glad we shared that morsel. That was definitely going to come up at some point during the stream, but we found the natural place for it. People are making jokes that we should have called this Willow Talk, which I'm assuming is a riff on pillow talking.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad some people knew what I was talking about with the HD remastering and stuff like that, because they're bringing up the Buffy the Vampire
Slayer
show.
I've seen them bring it up, but I'm refusing to acknowledge that it even exists, so I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's infamous. All I'll say is, if you know,
it's terrible.
If any of you guys haven't seen the show and you want to watch it, buy the DVDs. That's all I can say.
Yeah, do not watch the digital remaster. It's terrible. It's actually really bad.
Yeah.
When they reframe some shots, sometimes you can see crew standing on the edge of the shot, like the boom mic operator standing there. Yes.
Oh my God.
It's bad. There's scenes that are supposed to be at night, but when they redo it, it looks like it's daytime. And for somebody who's supposed to be hunting vampires, the day-night cycle, like, you should be able to tell if it's day or night. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's Buffy. Excellent show. Go watch Buffy.
There's a character named
remaster.
There's a character named Willow, so we're still kind of
right there.
There we go.
Show is Willow.
We got there.
Yeah. Kolnitsky, it's 2 a.m. there. It's not even 6 p.m. here. Are you in Russia? I want to say. But as soon as I say that, he's going to be like from Ukraine,
Eastern Europe somewhere.
For maybe. Sure.
Yeah.
But I am honored that you would join us at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's dedication.
Yeah. And regularly. Thank you.
I was right, Russia.
Yay.
Well, many thanks for joining us, my friend. And you are a rock star for coming to join us in the middle of the night. Anyway, we were talking about, this movie that I used to like a lot called Willow. Okay, one of the things that really struck me with this movie was how some of the shots especially of early in the movie, you have several shots of the group of Nelwyn traveling to go to this crossroads. And there are some gorgeous shots of what I think is New Zealand.
I think you might be right, Stephen, because like when this shot where they are on the shield later in the film and traveling
That
down,
is in New Zealand.
Yeah, I was like, that's where they shot Lord of the Rings.
I
that
think,
looks like the Roy.
Not
I mean,
all of it, that movie is shot in New Zealand, but parts of it for sure are.
Yeah, I listened to part of the audio commentary with Warwick Davis. I'm pretty sure he mentioned New Zealand. So. Yeah.
Well, if you're looking for panoramic, beautiful, broad, sweeping, natural beauty, I mean.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is there were so many gorgeous shots, but they went by too quickly. They didn't have the sweep and scope that you got with maybe Lord of the Rings or something. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like a stationary camera and with a really nice background and characters walking by.
Yeah, I did feel like it wasn't that effective because it's like you said, there'd be a stationary shot and you'd just have a shot of them sort of walking across the screen for about, 5 seconds, and then it would dissolve to another shot of them walking for about 5 seconds, and then another shot. And there's something about it's Lord of the Rings sort of tied it. You had these sort of epic sweeping shots, and the storytelling was tied into it. You'd have Gandalf talking, to the Fellowship about where they're going, or you'd have, the music ramped up when Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are running after Merry and Pippin, and there's this sense of propulsion. And with these shots, I mean, part of it's just the time. It's a different style of filmmaking, but I did feel like it wasn't quite as effective.
Yeah.
And so that part of the movie is a little slow, and then but then the movie picks up as soon as Val Kilmer comes in.
Now, I'm a person that, when I watch a movie, if I'm going to complain about something, usually the first thing I'm going to complain about is the pacing of the movie, which is really up to that's the editor's job, as you know, John. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the first act of this movie was a little bit slower than I remembered. Although when I complain about pacing, I'm usually saying it's going too fast. They need to slow down. They need to marinate in these moments. I think I almost feel the opposite about the first maybe 10 or 15 minutes of this movie. It's okay, maybe not the first 5 minutes where the maid is escaping with the baby, but once we get to Willow's village, the whole story slows way down, and there's a lot of reaction shots of his kids smiling and giggling, and I'm just like, we could move the story along a little bit here. But once we get outside the village and on the road, I feel like the movie hits its stride and really finds its pace and does really great with maintaining that pace for the rest of the film.
Yeah, I don't know that I've felt that way about the stuff with Willow's family, because I actually really loved that stuff and felt immersed in it. It's really that traveling stuff that for me kind of slowed the film down. But also, and this is going back to the music, what actually, and I hate to use this phrase, I was about to say what saves it. It doesn't need saving because it's not like it's bad. But what carries it is the film score. As you're having these traveling shots, you have James Horner's music kind of, bringing you along. And it'd be dreadful if those were just, shots and you just had sort of sound effects of the wild in the background.
Right.
It's having that music that brings you along on the journey. But yeah.
Bring it.
No, I would never hold my hands like that in a fighting stance.
Aren't you like a black belt?
Yeah. Well, does it count if you haven't actually been in the martial arts in years and years and years.
But yeah, like you didn't forget it all. I might be in trouble here.
Yeah. But see, the first thing you learn in that though is that you go for the dirty move first. So I'm just gonna go with what hurts the most and then run away.
The thing, John, if we ever get to the point where I feel like we need to fight, I'm gonna kill you in your sleep.
Okay, I'm suddenly glad that these conventions are getting canceled.
Right.
Because we're supposed to be roomies. I mean, that does not fill me with.
They're talking about
great
this
confidence.
They're talking about the baby wig and
Rottweilers
wearing fur suits and rubber masks. Yeah, but like it was effective.
It works. I mean, what I liked about the dogs or whatever they're supposed to be is that, okay, yeah, you can see how they're done, but they look different than, other stuff I've seen in movies. And even for the 80s, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, the dog monsters, whatever they were called, is pretty terrifying to me as a child, and even as an adult watching it earlier today, I was like, I think it works, man. I think it still works.
And just the midwife getting mauled by them, it's like, God, that's horrific.
Horrible. Oh.
But
Chat's crazy.
Okay. We are going off the rails here, but I'm having fun. People are talking about our celebrity death match.
Wait.
It turned into a game of Clue somewhere in the middle here, and I'm not sure what happened.
Wait, who brought up the kitchen? What does the kitchen have to do with it?
Oh my gosh. Steven in
this
the kitchen.
One right here.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But now what people are wondering to know, because I'm supposed to be killing you in your sleep, and yeah.
Why are you sleeping in the kitchen, John? He just took a nap, y'all.
Okay, is this supposed to be a stream on Willow or not?
It is, which is why we'll head back in that direction.
I do want to say, because I mentioned the audio commentary, I was listening to some of it and I was shocked. But then, of course, it made sense because I know that he was really young when they did Return of the Jedi. But Warwick Davis was only like 17 years old.
I know, which is crazy.
And he plays a father.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I was wondering because the lady who plays his wife, her name was Julie Peters, I believe, played Kaya, and I tried to figure out how old she was, and she's obviously little people actors don't get a whole lot of work. It's unfortunate truth, but it is what it is.
Yeah, he said that she was actually only in one other thing.
I could find two other credits for her.
Two was okay.
Yeah.
But that's a shame because I thought she did a really good job.
She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very believable as like a caring. There was good chemistry between them.
Yeah.
But which I think speaks really well of him and her acting abilities, because I want to say she looks a good bit older than him. He's 17 years old when he's making this movie, and she doesn't look old, but she looks like she might be 30.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, I really enjoyed her portrayal of that character.
Sorry, I've got to put this up, Stephen.
Go ahead. Yeah, I saw that, and you're not wrong.
Wow, yeah. And the kids were great too. So when they were all together and having those little family moments, it really gelled. You could see Willow was, in his fatherly role, and he was great with the kids, and then the kids with the baby. So it was very cute, very touching. It's like, Dad, look what we brought home. Can we keep it? It followed me home.
Right. Under no circumstances is anyone in this family to fall in love with that baby.
And how many times? Yeah.
He might as well be invisible. You might
Right.
be on another plane of existence at that point. It's so funny.
Well, I mean, if any of you guys have, you've got kids, Stephen. Someday John might have kids, but how many times?
John, if you want mine, you can have one.
Yeah, I'll let mine out cheap. If they bring home, like, they're constantly bringing home stray somethings. It's a turtle, it's a kitten. Mom, can we keep it? And of course, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, oh, it's so cute. No, it's not. Okay, you've got to feed it. You've got to take care of it. And yeah, so that's a very kid thing to do, to bring home this little stray.
Right.
I think this is what's funny. You can almost say that this is teaching young boys early on that when the wife and kids are set on something, you're not going to get your way. So just get over it.
I mean, in practice, in theory, I want to reject that, but in practice, it's not far from the truth. Jess, I'm only jabbing it. I didn't jab at 30-year-olds. I'm 45. What business do I have? I'm just saying that 30 is old compared to 17. So yeah, I got called out, so I had to defend my honor.
Kadar, bring home a baby tiger.
Let's talk about sort of the ensemble of the village, just briefly, because I want to talk about Billy Barty again, because
all right, we'll talk about Billy Barty.
Well, he's just so much fun. Again, I have a lot of sort of nostalgic childhood connections to Masters of the Universe. So when he pops up on screen and he opens his mouth, I'm like, Gwildor! And it's just much fun. I do love when they're all setting off and he says, follow the birds, and the one says they're heading back to the village and says, ignore the birds.
Right. The bones tell me nothing. The bones have spoken. Yeah, he's a great character, but I think, and this movie does not do a lot of subtle, but it does some. And I think Billy Barty has one of the best sort of subtle moments in the film where he's asking him which finger has the power to change the world. And it's your own finger, which is, of course, the hero's journey is a lot of times a coming of age story or story of self-actualization. And that of course is something that only comes from within yourself. You can change the world, but you have to be the one to do it. You not somebody else's finger. Your hands have to be the one to make the change. And I kind of like that that message, even though it's very subtly sort of layered in, because you don't even get the full. You get the question and you don't get the answer till much later.
And not only does it have to be you that makes that change, but you have to have the faith in yourself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that moment between the two of them, as as they're setting off, when he asked him what his answer was going to be, and and that was in fact the correct answer.
Use the force, Willow. So yeah, just.
All right, I saw someone in the chat and I had to type a message. I saw who is it? Voice of Reason. Where is he? There he is. Who just did a collab with a friend of the channel. Came out earlier today. Didn't even know it was happening. But recently did a collab with Helen.
Yeah, now I'm the one being cheated on, Stephen.
Aww.
Come crawling back.
Poor John.
No, I'm glad Helen is, having some stuff coming out, just because, we've talked about this. I've sort of brought it on myself. I've gotten a bit overwhelmed with the number of different things that I've been tackling. So So obviously, I'm sure there's a number of people jumping at the chance to, get on and talk with her about Tolkien, because it's a great time. And so I'm happy, and, and I'm working on getting my own stuff going, which, I'll mention later. It's a lot, even with all this, free time that we have. It's a lot to, have on our plates. And
I'll tell you what, since we're almost an hour in and we're kind of like broke the conversation anyway, let's just go ahead and do the mid-roll while we're here. So yeah, I will start with, hey Dan, I'm going to watch that collab you did with Helen very soon. It came out on a Sunday, and Sunday's not a great day for me because of this, but yes, very soon. I really enjoy Helen's work, and I'm glad to see you're getting out there and putting your knowledge to use as well, Dan. So yeah, thanks to everybody in the chat for coming. We have 27 watching right now, and I appreciate every one of you. To all my old heads, you know what we do right now. I tell you to like and subscribe because I forget to do it otherwise. I just never remember to say that, but it really does help the channel grow and help to reach new people. Which, we always want new, good people in our little fan community here. I'm going to give my shout out right now to Ridiculous Ed Tollett, #1 patron in the land. He keeps the lights on over here. There are expenses that happen, and we've got a few patrons, but none of them is better than Ridiculous Ed because he sends the most money. That's right. He paid me to say that. Coming up soon, next week, we will be talking about a little independent film series you may have heard of called Star Wars. So a week from tomorrow is May the 4th. So in celebration of May the 4th be with you, on May the 3rd, during our normal stream time here on Sunday afternoons next week, we will be having a Star Wars love fest. And we've got a couple of really great guests lined up for that as well, including Helen, who we just mentioned, but also Maester Mary, who has not been able to be on camera for a long while, but she's a super fan, so managed to twist her arm and get her back. And we're also going to have Sanrixian, who may or may not do art. That's up to her. But we're just having on some great Star Wars fans to talk about and share our love of Star Wars. The week after that, you know what? I'm gonna pull up the doc real quick. It's right here. The week after that, I believe, is I Know That Nerd. It is. It's a new I Know That Nerd. And this one's going to be a little bit different because 90+% of the time, I can only think of one person who's been on I Know That Nerd who was not directly a content creator in their own right. But we're kind of going back that way. We're having somebody who doesn't really create content the same way most people do, but someone I consider a pillar of the fan community, and that is Pat Sponagle. If you are on Twitter, you know who that is, I'm sure. At least if you're a member of the A Song of Ice and Fire fan community on Twitter, you know who that is. If not, well, come by next week and get to know him because he's actually a really interesting guy. Very, very smart. I did a panel with him last year at Con of Thrones. Nessie was on that panel too. And,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just really looking forward to having that conversation. After that, we're going to do another Expanse character. Nothing is set in stone yet, but I've got Bobby's name written on there. If you're just married to a different character for us to talk about other than Bobby, go ahead and let us know. But right now, that's the plan. And then we've got other stuff coming after that, but you don't need to know about all that yet. So yeah, next week, Star Wars. Week after that, I Know That Nerd with Pat Sponagle. And the week after that, an Expanse character study.
And I am so excited for that Star Wars.
Me too.
It's going to be so much fun.
We all are.
especially because we're gonna be doing it the night before the series finale of the Clone Wars. So I know Mary and I are gonna get to go on and on about how excited we are about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just watching other people and listening to other people share their love. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, but I do enjoy it. I've got enough hair for it, but my hair is so fine it would probably just fall out within 20 minutes. So
I'm like so bummed that I don't have Jedi robes, but I do have a Darth Vader lightsaber.
nice.
That I'm gonna be, bringing to that talk. So
Sweet. Yeah, so Nessie, do you have anything coming up soon? Anything settled on yet?
Nothing set in stone, Stephen. I work a little slower on my channel.
But you do deep dive stuff, so like
I do deep dive stuff. So my latest was just released this Wednesday, and that is the deep dive on Dunk, Sir Duncan the Green. We pulled out a lot of parallels with Garth Greenhand, and I dropped my favorite new little theory on the public. So check it out.
And it was good stuff. And it has to do with a certain relative of a certain red bird. Anyway, I won't spoil anything. It was very good. Very interesting theory though, and plausible. John, what do you got coming up next?
All right. So this coming week, I'm actually going to be doing it a day later than usual because the guest I have lined up is not available on Thursday. So we're doing it on Friday at same time, 2:00 p.m. Eastern. And it is going to be Lauren, aka Shakespeare of Thrones, and we are talking about the 1996
this week.
Yeah, the 1996 version of Hamlet. It's starring and directed by Kenneth Branagh, and that's just going to be a blast. I love that film. It's actually one of my favorite films, and it's going to be so great having Lauren on here because she has such a wealth of knowledge about all of Shakespeare's plays, and she went ahead and she went on a Hamlet binge and watched a bunch of different versions, starting with the Kenneth Branagh film when I asked her to do this, and so it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then this isn't really the first announcement because I was on a stream the other night with Top Shelf Fandom, his birthday stream, and I announced this, but I take it that a number of you probably weren't there. So the first time I'm saying this. The week after that, I'm going to be doing a stream on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I will be doing with Hannah from Game of Owns, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years. And she is an enormous Harry Potter fan. And I went to GeekyCon with her back in 2016, and she dragged me to the Wizard Rock concerts they were doing. And we just had a ball. And, something like that is not really, I'm not comfortable in big social situations like that. But it was a lot of fun hanging out with her, and we're going to have a ball talking about that. So yeah, that's what I have coming up.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. And if you guys are interested in anything that they're doing, both links to both of their independent channels are down in the description. John is John Webster Film. Nessie is the Unspun Yarn. Yeah, go check them out. Go subscribe. This channel is like a very nerdy pop culture focused thing. Nessie looks at a lot of deconstructing. I mean, she is the Unspun Yarn. This is her because she's taken these yarns, i.e. stories, and deconstructing them and like really, really getting down to the nitty gritty, like doing research and stuff. So I don't, she'll never have me on because I don't do that. Actually, I think maybe I am going to be on for the
I think you might be
a
on.
Marvel one, but and then John will go and he will look at like really excellent television and cinema that's probably more outside the nerd culture thing.
Slightly outside.
Like these two did a 2-part collab on HBO's Rome that is everybody that's seen it loved what they saw. You guys had a couple great conversations about Rome. So yeah, go check them out. Link to Patreon is down in the description as well. The time is what it is. This stuff from this channel will always be free, but if you want to throw us a few bucks to help cover some of the costs of like our streaming software or whatever, we would be very appreciative. And links to all of that is down in the description. So back to Willow. We haven't even like done character studies yet, and we're halfway through our conversation. So let's excuse me. Let's just look at some of the characters more closely. Nessie, you wanna pick one first and go for it?
Well, let's just go ahead and start with our hero, Willow of Good.
All right.
So, I mean, he's a young man. He's got a family, lives in a village, but he's got this love of magic. He does like parlor tricks at their little festivals, and he's really aspires to be a sorcerer. So that's it in his heart. But he also has practical things that he has to take care of, like farming and plowing a field and taking care of his family. So there's two sides to Willow. There's the family man, and then there's that that magical element. So what did you think, John?
Yeah.
What's your impression of Willow?
Of the character Willow.
Character Willow, not the tree.
It's strange to think of because I think obviously we all have such a affection for Warwick Davis. So it's sort of impossible not to just love him the moment, he pops up on screen. But I like him because, even though initially he's sort of standoffish about it, he doesn't want to invite any trouble, then that the baby is going to bring, but he very quickly develops feelings for the child and cares for the child, and so from that point on he wants to make sure that nothing happens to her, and I really like that, and that he's not willing to just hand her off to anybody, like everybody else is. And he even has to be really talked into it to give the baby over to Med Mardigan, and then he doesn't feel good about that, and
I mean,
like at all.
Yeah,
and then he makes the choice as soon as it's presented before him that whether to take this on himself. He says, I'm going to do that, but I'm also not going to put my friend in danger. So I'm going to send him home, and I'm going to set out on this journey on my own. So he's a very brave character, and he's got a good heart.
Yes. He takes on all the responsibility. It's like he's the only adult in the room a lot of times. That was one thing that I would keep thinking to myself over and over and over during this movie, when they're in this chase scene, or they're flying down a mountain or whatever. All I could think of was, who's watching the baby? Where's somebody needs to get that kid before it flies out of the wagon or what have you. I'm like,
there were a couple of times where I'm like, Willow, for protecting the baby, you sure are leaving this baby in a lot of peril.
Right? I mean, not even a car seat or anything.
I still say that he does a better job keeping an eye on her than Mando from The Mandalorian.
Okay. Yeah, but does Allura Dannon have the Force to protect herself with? See,
I don't know.
She can apparently communicate. So that's something.
she can communicate with fairies.
I think it's more like fairies can communicate with her.
Right. Well, she is the magical special super baby.
And we don't know what that is. We
And
never find out what her superpower is.
She does have the superpower for all those amazing facial expressions.
She does. That baby's got some charisma. I'm just saying.
Like,
that is something I did notice. Absolutely.
Yeah, +3 charisma for that baby.
No kidding.
And I kept thinking, I don't think during the entire movie that anybody ever changed that baby's diaper.
You did mention changing rags, so we have the stuff to do it.
Maybe, yeah. I'm like, oh man, somebody needs to call CPS or something for them.
Well, okay, yeah, but it's like in Lord of the Rings. We never really see anybody having to go to the bathroom or shave or cut their hair or anything of that sort. So,
characters don't have to do that. They're magic.
Lord of the Rings, it's actually pretty clear that, Aragorn has a beard trimmer, but only one guard because it stays the same length throughout the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not shaving to the skin; he's just trimming back to that like number 2 guard every morning.
Yep.
Anyway, you are correct, Kelly. He did. I believe that character's name is Burgle Cut. Which what a tool. One of the things though that I wanted to make sure that I brought up was that Willow and somebody else paraphrased, I believe it was Young Crone. Willow is extremely relatable, not only in his sort of like his desire for his simple life, and he just wants to take care of his family and his kids. All that's very relatable, but he's also like the self-doubt he feels, especially for those of us who grew up maybe with anxiety disorders or like as outcasts because of what do you call it? Like I was a nerd, so I was an outcast. Mm-hmm. Basically, till I was halfway through high school. And the way he's sort of picked on and like sometimes will almost say something, but then doesn't actually say something is very, very relatable to me, especially in 1988 when I was at maybe the height of that part of my life.
Yeah, he really likes a lot of self-confidence.
He does, but he finds it throughout the movie.
Right. Well, he has to get away from everything that he knows, everything that's familiar, everything that's, the people who are always telling him he's not good enough, or he just is this, this fool, this bumbling fool. And, just get away from all that, clear his headspace, get out away from the little village, the little small town that he's from, where everybody knows him and has known him his whole life. Remembers every silly, clumsy mistake he's ever made and probably reminds him of it all the time. I mean, that was very relatable for me. I had to get away from everybody that I knew and, try to find my own identity. So instead of being reminded of what I was, but think about what I could be.
Right on. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat too, so there's a lot of good conversation going on in the chat.
Well, Bernie showed up, so it's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay, so anybody want to say anything else about our titular character, Willow? I really did enjoy that they made him different, that they made him, by the nature, he's more Frodo than Aragorn, but he's not Frodo.
If anything, he's more Sam.
Right, I would agree with that, but he's still he is his own character. He
Yes.
is in the high fantasy world that Willow is set. You know, he's one of the few that can actually manipulate magical forces in a real way. Oh, you bring up a really solid point. Kelly says Frodo was the richest guy in the Shire. You're right. And Willow is like trying to bring his crop in so that he won't lose everything and wind up working in the mines.
Yeah. Shout out to that pig, though. That was that. If you're going to plow on your field with a pig. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I mean,
I don't think so.
no, I agree that he's sort of a Sam, except that he hasn't latched himself onto, someone that he's serving, which is Sam's,
Right.
role with relation to Frodo. But I still think personality wise and his status within the community is very much a Sam type.
I was thinking more about his sense of responsibility.
Hmm.
He says he's going to do a thing, and he does the thing that he says he's going to do. So no matter what, he sticks to his word. So that's kind of the doggedness that I see, like in a character like Sam.
And what
One-
sorry, do I?
I mean, no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying what you guys were mentioning before about how Will is very relatable. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel some identification with him, just like what you were saying, Stephen. He sort of lacks confidence in himself. He's knocked down by certain other members of his community, and it's just, you can't help but root for the underdog, because a lot of us, I think, feel that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a long established trope in fiction. If you want people to latch on to your lead character, they need to feel bad for them in the first 5 minutes, and it works. And it works in this movie when it happens. We meet Willow, and he's plowing the field, and here comes the village jackass to rub his nose in it and make him feel bad and to tell him he's worthless and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's the same reason. I can't think of his name, but Harry Potter's cousin runs up and down the stairs,
Dursley.
making all that. Yeah, Dursley, like freaking
Dudley or whatever.
so that we feel, Harry Potter was a boy that lived in a room under the stairs, and everything in his life sucked. That's why he's, so we immediately relate to him. We feel bad for him, and so we want good things to happen for him. And the same works here in Willow.
Yeah, I think all of us who kind of grew up quiet, reserved, and feeling like we were awkward, we all had a Bertlecut or a Dudley,
Yeah.
And we immediately hate that character and love our protagonist.
Right. And Willow gets that treatment right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, we all had that bully or whatever, that overbearing jerk who would always take every opportunity to tell you, how small you were, if they could. Any little flaw. Yeah. And it's so satisfying when they get thrown up on by a baby. That's
Or shit on by a bird.
Or shit on by a bird. Yes, that's a very wonderful commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Jaded Redhead, and nails it right here. Willow saying that he's short even among his people just says so much about the way, he views himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because people can't tell you who you are, but people can tell you who they think you are, and if you believe them, like, you know, that's part of what Willow is facing throughout this movie, is to sort of like come to believe in himself. Anyway, I think I'm just retreading the same ground there. Shall we move on to maybe another character?
Sure.
Okay, great. I nominate the maddest of all Mardigans.
I knew that one was coming.
I mean, how not, right?
We got to go right to him.
Second lead of the film, if we're honest. He is the second lead.
I want to know what he's carrying around to clean his teeth, because, man.
There's a scene where he's like using a torn up little rag when he's in the crow cage. He's rubbing on his teeth with like maybe the corner of his shirt or something.
I've never seen anything like it. That's one hell of a ride.
Yeah.
It was funky. Definitely had some funk on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Sean. You are correct, although it's not till the end of the film. But you're right, and he eventually does come like fully around and stops calling him Peck.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is, I mean, it's a racial slur, right?
Yeah.
Because their race is called Nelwyn.
Right. That's just a derogatory term. So that all the big people seem to use.
Which, you know, it's funny how you kind of yeah. It's funny how you view things as you grow older, and it is a derogatory slur, but as a kid, I do remember kind of, you know, just cracking up at the way that Val Kilmer delivers that when he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, peck, 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 peck." But I mean, the best one though is, "Oh, I'm really scared. No, please don't. There's another Peck here with an acorn pointed at me."
I think he's got the best lines in the movie. The Brownies maybe have like some of the great wisecracks or funny moments, but I think Mad Mardigan seriously has the best lines in the film. Like,
yeah.
"I love you, Sorsha. I don't love her. She kicked me in the face. I hate her. Don't I?
Don't I? Yeah.
Just, oh. And I'm never going to do it justice the way Val Kilmer did, but God, I love his
comedic side is really
he's got great timing, and he's got the right physicality for the role too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, another great line, "Gentlemen, meet Lug." Not a woman. Yeah. Great scene, but Mad Mardigan has not many characters get a full arc in this film. Willow does, Mad Mardigan does. I would say Sorsha does, although I feel like she doesn't get a full arc. She gets an arc, but it's sort of reactionary to somebody else's.
Yeah, that was, if I'm going to talk about one of my genuine weak points of the movie, it's the characterization of Sorsha. There's a lot of material that they could have had to, you know, I mean, depending on how long you want the movie to be, but you could have had, you know, our main villain, Queen Bavmorda, be a bit more three-dimensional, along with Sorsha, of, you know, defining their relationship and actually planting believable seeds of Sorsha maybe not believing in everything she's doing, and that's a weak point in the movie. But, you know, it's also, again, I keep going back to the time it was made, and unfortunately it was kind of at the time viewed in Hollywood as enough. Well, obviously she falls in love with Val Kilmer. That's a reason enough, isn't it?
I mean, of course.
So like
Gave her all those great compliments.
I have certain like headcanon ideas that make it more acceptable for me, but it would have been nice for them to do some things on screen. Like there is really now he notices that she's pretty, and yes, she is. You're beautiful. You're very strong in that tavern place. But like she doesn't start to have a change of heart until the Dust of Broken Hearts scene with Mad Mardigan. And he says some of that like pretty flowery poetry music, which I'm just like rolling my eyes. This is so cliche. This is like not great writing of a female character. The only thing I can but like I can headcanon it and say this is a person who has never experienced genuine like affection of that kind ever. Her mother clearly drives her to accomplish her own goals, and everything. Her relationship is with her mother is about her mother, not her. She's probably never had a relationship or an interaction with a person where the person cared about her, even if it is sort of like ecstasy that's causing it to happen. So I can see her having a change of heart somewhat because of that emotional connection, but like we don't get any storytelling confirmation of that.
Yeah.
He rocked that pink dress. I'm going to agree with you. He really did.
And that coming from, a guy who can rock a dress, I'm saying that's high praise.
Leaf.
All I can say though is that woman's husband needs glasses.
Yeah, for real. I'm like, he's got a mustache, yo.
Oh, in some cultures that's very attractive. Don't be hating.
I do not. I mean, I guess I have the confidence to wear a pink dress. I just don't have a pink dress.
Well, we'll have to do something about that.
But young crone, I know you're new here, and I'm glad you're still here. Appreciate you sticking with us. There are pictures of me in my blue dress out there somewhere, so they do exist.
Yeah, I think John could rock a dress too.
I bet he could.
He's got the bone structure for it.
Yeah.
I already told you I'll pull off Cersei's end of season 6 armor.
Hey, I would love that. Dude, that's a killer dress too.
Yes, I would love to see that.
Okay,
so somebody just needs to buy it. Because I don't know how I would afford something like that, but yeah.
You need to talk to Mandy.
I'm going to try to steer this back towards Willow. Crone, there is photo evidence. I just don't have it handy, but it does exist. But anyway, yeah. We were talking Mad Mardigan, and I guess we're just going to cross over with Sorsha. So, like, while I have some issues with the romance subplot of this film, like, I'm not going to dwell on it. Part of that is the storytelling of the day and age, and the modern Hollywood does a lot better job of defining its female characters outside of their relationship with male characters, which. Fair talk, she is not fully defined by her relationship with Mad Mardigan. That's just the catalyst that causes her to change sides. I thought it was weak catalyst, but it is what it is. But otherwise, I find her to be a very compelling character who isn't a damsel in distress. Like, the only time she's not fighting is when she's got a knife to her throat. That's literally it. And she's out there kicking guys in the face and chopping people up with her sword and barking orders, and there was a reason that Joanne Whaley was kind of a crush of mine in my early teen years.
Well, I was going to say, as maybe weak from a characterization point as that scene is where Mad Mardigan is declaring his love and all that, she really does look just dynamite in that scene with the hair and everything, and then when she comes out of the tent. So I'm going to fully say that I got something out of this movie this time around that I didn't get watching it as a kid. But I did also want to say that what really struck me about this movie is, we can have complaints about, maybe her characterization, but the women really kick ass in this movie.
They do. I mean, one thing that I noticed from this film that I don't know that I've ever seen anywhere else is one grandma punch another grandma in the face.
Yeah.
And the grandma doing the punching was the good guy.
Yes.
Like, I love that.
Grandma fight. That was awesome.
I mean, it's like...
And two,
it's like the Gandalf versus Saruman fight, but it's, it's two older women, which just, especially for being 1988, I was watching it felt so revolutionary.
Yes, to have not one but two older female characters with really strong roles, that weren't just like window dressing somewhere, that they played very significant roles. That was pretty good. You don't come across roles like that for, lady actors of,
right.
So that was pretty awesome. And she played a great character. She played all the little animals, she's the voice in all the little animals.
I also really appreciate how they sort of like modulated her voice for the different animals too.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't overdo it.
No, it was enough that let you know that yes, it was an animal voice, like a little squeaky little voice for the first little critter. Was it like a possum or something? I'm not sure what it was.
Muskrat, maybe.
Muskrat, little rat thing. A little squeaky voice for that. And then when she was the crow, she had the, raspy crow voice. Yeah, they did a really good job on that.
I love how what's the word? How annoyed she'd get with Willow. Her animal form. It's just so much fun. It's like, this is, obviously, when she returns to human form, she, gets a bit more, mature and benevolent. But, when she gets a bit testy with Willow, just failures to bring her back into a human, and that was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, those transformations didn't look like they were, pleasant, to say the least. It was quite, so having to go through that for failure, and then again for failure, she, I think she held up pretty well, but I'd be a little testy too.
Right.
I don't know. Being a tiger might be kind of cool.
So what are you going to look like if this works? I am a young, beautiful woman.
Right.
Concentrate.
Surprise. She had quite a shock, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about Mad Mardigan or Sorsha?
Just I didn't mention the music. It's interesting that the heroic music from the film is called Willow's theme, but really it's more Mad Mardigan.
I agree,
because it's played during his heroic moments,
his action sequences.
Yeah. So and then Willow's theme you can very much hear when he's with his family, and it's softer music, and but I do think that it's the most memorable piece of music in the film. So it's called Willow's theme for that reason, because it's it's the de facto main theme of the film itself. But yeah, it's just so much fun when Val Kilmer gets going with his action stuff, and you hear that music. It's very swashbuckling.
It is.
And he's so much fun to watch.
You know what's crazy is that theme was so popular that it was used in movie trailers that were not Willow after the fact. Like for years, like there is an early cut of Jurassic Park trailer that has the Willow theme over it. Because it's that compelling.
And I have to say again, which is, why, Horner gets a lot of flack because that theme is very reminiscent of Schumann's Third Symphony, at least a piece of it. But if you're gonna borrow from anybody, borrow from the greats. And I love the fact that something that's derived from a piece of classical music, ended up being so popular and popping up in so many trailers and stuff, because as a classical music lover, I just love that. So I've always been very happy that, Horner derives some of his music from classical music. I think he does the same thing in, it's not one of my favorite scores of his, but it has its moments, the score to Troy, when Brad Pitt is storming the beach, and that pulls from some classical music. And that, again, also a really heroic theme. And so it's like I said before, if you're going to pull from anybody, pull from some great classical composers.
Right. Steal from the best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to do it.
Excuse me. Sorry. I think I just barely muted in time. So you guys didn't get cough right in the microphone. So what else should we talk about? Do we want to talk about the brownies? And
yeah, the brownies, the fairies, they were like the comic side relief.
They really were. They were the R2D2 and C3PO of the film.
They very much so, especially I love them when they were all on that wagon, and it's just crazy. It's like a combination, Ben-Hur, chariot race, and
Ewoks from the end of the silly stuff.
Silly stuff. And it's great. I'm like, okay, how many wheels are going to come up before this thing flies apart,
Right.
And with that whole scene there was really, like, I think the best of action sequence in the film, I think.
So as I was watching it this morning, I kind of like had this moment where I'm like, oh, these guys are just here for laughs and I'm not feeling it. But then at some point I went, no, these guys are actually really funny.
Mm-hmm. Oh, their little bromance is so cool.
And I can kind of forgive it because they shouldn't behave like tiny humans. They're not tiny humans. They're not. They're fairy folk in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
little tricksters.
Yeah, they are related to pixies and fairies and sprites and however else you want to put it. They come from a different part. I believe brownies are Celtic in origin.
Yes.
As soon as I say that, I'm going to be wrong.
You're correct, Stephen.
Oh, I got lucky. But yeah, they're a fairy folk.
They're fairy folk. More.
I can forgive them being tricksters and kind of ridiculous and silly. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the brownies, my feeling on them is going to vary depending on what kind of mood I'm in while watching the movie. This morning, I don't know that I was, in the right mindset for that kind of over-the-top silly comedy. So they didn't sit that well with me. But then I remember from previous times watching the movie that, that some of their comedy did work for me. So I don't know. It's a little from both sides for me. I did get a chuckle out of, when the one falls into the keg of beer. He's like, beer. And I got just so much fun out of the fact that was the actor, Kevin Pollak, which is such a weird thing to see him in, because I just think of him from the Grumpy Old Men films.
I mean,
and
yes,
to see him go over the top like this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really did enjoy them. There were moments where I went, these two characters exist to keep the 12-year-olds interested throughout this movie.
Right.
And that's okay. That I don't think that's a flaw in the film. I think they lean on it a little bit too heavy sometimes. But at least when they're having their silly moments, it's not undercutting like an emotionally significant moment in the film. So I'm okay with it. And I did just look it up. Brownies originate in Scottish folklore.
I thought so.
Hey, Aaron M, right there on time. Thank you, sister. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Yes, they're little helpful little sprites that you try to attract to come and stay around your house to help clean up and cook and clean and make cookies. And they're not depicted accurately, but who cares? They're very helpful spirits that you want to have around the house.
Right.
But in this film, they're more like an agent of chaos. Every time the little brownies show up, there is mayhem about to ensue. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I do also like early on in the film when they've got Willow and his friend tied up. I very much got Gulliver's Travels.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in charge here, Shorty. I am.
Yeah. They were the big people at that time, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. I also love how he calls him Shorty.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember that one character's name. Rule is the one that's like not in charge.
The sidekick.
Yeah, and then it's like Franjon is the other one, something like that. Anyway, they do make a fun pair. I stole the baby from you when you were taking a pee-pee.
I stole the baby.
I stole the baby. Yeah, they do have some really fun moments, but I'm with you, John. I think depending on what mood you're in could really make it land or not land.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're introduced to him flying with the baby with a bird on the back of a bird with his baby, and you're like, "Oh my God, what is this?"
And also, I will say that, as much as I've said, I have appreciation for the effects and the time which they're made, but it does sort of impact your impression, especially if you're coming to it from a modern mindset. You're like, "Oh, this does not look realistic at all." The scale of these guys, so that does impact it a bit. And I think just right off the bat, you're not having perfect immersion with those characters.
Yeah. But that all goes into the willing suspension of disbelief you have to enjoy something.
Right. Yeah, at some point you've got to take your discernment and just put it on a coat hook for a couple hours,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm not going to knock that they got it wrong, that they were brownies, that they should have been pixies or something. I'm not going to knock that. They got brownies. I'm not going to knock it. They were cute little flying critters.
They whoever was writing the film, I can't even remember, but when they were writing the film, I'm sure they just they pulled from something they knew. Oh, look, there's a thing called a brownie that's a fairy folk, and we need a fairy folk thing, so let's.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been their favorite snack food for all we know.
Right.
Yeah. Or that little, like when I was a kid, we used to get these little chocolate drinks. They're about like this little glass bottles, and they were called brownies. And they were the best thing. They're kind of like a Yoo-hoo or something now.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I enjoyed the brownies for what they were. They were okay. Again, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about this film in general, but there was just something falling flat when the fairy queen Sharlindria appeared and like, here, take this wand, and you have to go do this thing. Like she has sort of an exposition dump and gives Willow his second call to action in the story.
Yeah.
That scene falls flat to me. I'm sorry, it just does. I'm sorry to anybody who loved that scene. I'm not crapping on your opinion, but I actually thought it was pretty poorly executed, because it's very much like somebody shows up, talks at the character and leaves. And it's very sort of like Deus Ex Machina type thing. I'm not being very articulate about this, and I certainly don't want to finish off the stream on with negativity, but like, I really did not enjoy that scene. I thought it was maybe the worst part of the movie.
Yeah, it fell a little flat. It was kind of like,
I got a very fairy godmother from Pinocchio vibe, so it worked for me, and I actually thought the effects there were beautiful. Not including the brownies, but and the way she comes up into Willow's nose, and and I don't know, I liked it. The
little fairy kissing his nose, very cute. I'm with you on that, but sort of like, you have to take Elora Dan and go here and find Fin Raziel and go to the lake, and she's exiled because of Bab Morta. Here, take the wand. You need to go. Okay.
Well, you do need some way.
It was a bit much.
You do need some way to communicate, some of that stuff to Willow, because how else is he going to really learn of that stuff? Again, it did because it reminded me of the fairy godmother from Pinocchio in a way. I liked that. It had a very fairy tale quality to it. And so I'm sorry, I'm gonna, not to say it's like my favorite scene in the movie or anything, but
you disagree with me.
But I do disagree with you.
As our good friend Sean here is pointing out, shocker. This is why we get along so great, though, John.
Yeah.
Our different takes, and we can still be like best buds. High five. Psh.
Oh wait, wrong
side. There you go.
One. Yeah, your mom's right. She was supposed to look ethereal, so we get all this golden, ghostly, twinkly, big giant Tinkerbell looking thing flying in. Yeah, okay, we get it. She's the fairy queen, but it probably would have appealed to 12-year-old me.
Oh, wait, did I say fairy godmother? Yeah, I'm mixing up my Disney stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just answered that. Actually, she's called the Blue Fairy.
Blue Fairy, yeah.
Yeah,
but she's very fairy godmother like.
Yeah, she wasn't no Galadriel, that's for sure.
No.
But again, that's unfair to compare stuff to Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings was on a whole different level.
Right. What I'm saying
is stuff.
It does appeal more toward the 12-year-old than it would to an adult.
Yes.
And that's what it was supposed to. So that being said, that's what it needed. That's the role that she played. And we get to move on to the next part of the story. So it was that, or like find a scroll in the woods, or,
Yeah, I don't have the answer for it, which, maybe I should have some sort of answer before I bring up the critique. But like, I'm not a movie maker either. So
I don't agree that it's a Deus Ex Machina, because, it's not like it's something that comes in at the end of the film. This is early on, and you do need a way to get this information to Willow. He needs to know, the intricacies of what's going on, that he's not just, dealing with just an ordinary child that he's trying to hand off to somebody.
Okay, so I guess I could say, like, look at this. Look at the meeting between Frodo and Galadriel, where where he looks in her mirror, and they sort of have this back and forth. That is something more akin to what I would have liked to have seen. As it is, she shows up, she waves her arms while floating in the woods and gives him directions and says, go. There's not really like an interaction.
She gives him a choice. It's still up to him to make the decision.
Okay, but it's not really a character interaction.
It is actually, it's exactly that. She's a character, he's a character, it's a character interaction.
Okay.
I see her just more as a conduit than I do as a fully fleshed out, developed character. She's just a conduit, like Steve, and she's also is a bridge for communicating between,
Are we taking her to task for not being a fleshed out character? There's a lot of characters in this that aren't fleshed out.
I'm not
our main villain, Queen Babmorda. She's not fleshed out.
She's a bit of a mustache twirler, isn't she?
She is. Yeah, I'm not saying that she's the only one. I'm just saying in this instant, I kind of agree with Stephen, John. Sorry.
Yeah, and maybe it's not that it's Deus Ex Machina or whatever. I just didn't like the presentation of it.
Yeah, it is what it is, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, let's move on to a different topic. Yeah, I think all opinions are valid here, but let's just move on. I'm not going to change your mind.
For me, when I'm outnumbered.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's my favorite. She's probably my favorite of the fairies there. Young Crone, the fairy from Scrooge, the ghost of Christmas Past. Actually, yeah.
I can't remember her name, the actress that plays the part, but it's so funny when she punches him in the face. And
I love her.
Was that Carol Kane? Anyway, somebody will let me know who that was. Who Young Crone is referencing here from Scrooge. Great movie. Okay, well,
I don't recognize any version of the Ebenezer Scrooge story other than the Muppet Christmas Carol. So.
it is Carol Kane.
It is the best one. Scrooge is pretty good.
And this is the best one. Yeah. You and those puppets, John. What is it? What is it with you and the puppets?
Hey, man.
Like normal people, I enjoy good things.
Hey, Muppet Christmas Carol is excellent. But like Kermit the Frog is not creepy just to look at. Oh, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, I digress. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. So if there's anything else, either panelists or chatters, if there's anything else about this movie you want to make sure we discuss, now is the time to bring it up. And I agree, Anna, the Muppet version is always a superior version. I can't wait to see the Muppets Willow.
Coming to you on Disney Plus.
You all know I'm going to do a Muppet Christmas Carol stream for Christmas.
I am here for it, man. I will be there for it. I think it's my favorite.
We got to do a Christmas stream. We got to do something cool.
But yeah, so like...
And I'm not ragging on the Muppets Christmas at all. Just saying.
Muppet Treasure Island, also excellent. Way better than that Disney Treasure Planet movie.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Let's keep it on Willow. And if there's anything, any character, any plot point, anything that you want to make sure you bring up, now is the time.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of stuff we probably left. We've had a lot of digression.
Probably is.
I mean, I really would have liked to have found out what this destiny or this, that Allura was supposed to have had her great magical power. Other than bringing people together.
I actually have some thoughts on that.
Okay, so, Steve.
At no point is she ever said to have magical powers. She is there to bring about the downfall of Queen of Bavmorda. That is all. And she was in the right place in the right time for the villain to destroy herself with her own ambition.
Her superpower was ultra cuteness.
Yeah, I mean, and she got that going on too.
No, I mean, she gets all these people to love her and want to take care of her, defend her, or what have you. They rally around this baby. So, yeah, I mean, if that was her destiny, then cool. You know, if that's all she had to do, bring the the good guys together, for the cause.
Right. She just had to be present because her presence is what caused Bavmorda to create the circumstances of her own death.
Right. Gotcha.
And do want to give a shout out to the character of Eric, who is basically he and his other soldiers are basically the riders of Rohan.
Yeah. They even had like the vibe and everything.
They really did.
Proto Rohan uniform, everything. Yeah.
And I swear I've seen that actor in other things, especially from the 80s. I just can't remember specifically what he's been. I think he was the one thing I think I remember him from. I think he was in Superman 3.
What was the actor's name? Can you remember?
Are we talking about Eric?
Yeah.
Right there on the screen, Gavin O'Hurley.
Okay.
Yeah, mom's dropping some knowledge on us here about Happy Days.
Mm.
Yeah, don't see much else. So here's my last thing. One thing that I want to make sure we discuss before moving on. There is, in theory, a TV show coming. Now, this movie came out 32 years ago, in 1988. So you could, in theory, bring back all the original actors as 30-year or older versions of themselves. But you're unlikely to want to have any of the children come back, especially like Willow's children and or Elora Danan herself. Is there anybody you would love to see take on the role of Elora Danan? As anywhere from, say, 25 to 35. Because
I already know what your answer is.
Actually, maybe you don't. Because she's actually,
are you sure?
She's my second choice. Because, I mean, yes, she's okay. Okay. Emma Stone, right age, beautiful redhead, love her. Don't think she's the right casting for this part, if I'm being honest. I mean, I love her, and if she got the part, I would be super excited. But I actually think, you know who I want to see? And she is actually a little bit, just barely young, but she's a very beautiful redhead English person who I know can play a solid, like, rulership type character, and that's Sophie Turner. Okay, you guys are both just like, nobody likes it. That's fine. Who do you want?
I didn't like it.
Yeah, but I can read your face. You can't lie to me. Your face can't lie.
Well, I was thinking about it. I'm like, it just depends on the, whatever role it is that she's supposed to have, what her personality is like.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could put Sophie out there, and I'm sure she would do a wonderful job. She's, like you say, she's the right age.
Yeah, she's like mid-20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, I mean, I'd like to see her in something different.
Yeah. Come on, though, Kelly. Wigs are never the best option.
Okay, but Sophie Turner is not actually a redhead.
Okay, but she... Okay, whatever.
But she plays one on TV, and that's all.
She plays one on TV. Look, I'm just trying to get Sansa some, like, more work, all right?
Mm-hmm. Give Sansa a job.
Yeah.
Only only if she can keep her natural accent, because the poor girl was made to have an American accent for the X-Men films, and it didn't really suit her.
There are there's a handful of characters that have British accents and a handful of characters that have English accents in this movie, and often from the same place. People from Willow's Village, some of them have American accents and some have British accents. Eric and Med Mardigan both have American accents, but Sorsha and Bavmorda have English accents, so who knows? So, I see people are throwing out their suggestions. The girls who played Amy on Doctor Who and Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, Karen Gillan. Also an excellent choice. I love her to death. She's funny too, in a way that Sophie Turner, at least I haven't seen Sophie Turner be funny in the same way.
Yeah, but Sophie is quite a goofball in real life. She has a great sense of humor. I think she should be given a chance to bring that to her role.
Well, and I think that if you want to stay true to Willow, you need to keep some of that silliness in it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And she could also, at this point, have children of her own if she's in 30-year range. So having some cute little red-headed kids running around would be getting into trouble, Learning how to use, maybe one of them has magical talent like Willow does.
That would be awesome. I would also love to see Willow's children maybe be part of the story. Maybe that's just me wanting to,
moving on, it is all about the next generation.
Right. Well, and one thing this movie did that I don't think can be overstated is that it gave a lot, and I mean a lot, of little people actors an opportunity to work, to engage in their craft, and to
have a serious role.
Right, and have real serious roles and different roles, and not just be stuck as an Oompa Loompa or we're going to paste this beard on your face because you're a dwarf and all dwarfs wear beards. And that's just not how it was. It's just a simple village. Some of them wore beards, some did not. Some were warriors, some were money lenders and seed sellers, and some were farmers and some were miners, and and that's another good point too. People of color with dwarfism, and I think I would want a Willow-based television show to have a lot of Nelwyn in it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It would be great.
And let you get every good little person actor there is. Peter Dinklage, get Warwick Davis back to play as Willow. Get oh gosh, I'm showing my lack of knowledge for little person actors. I know of some others, but I can't think of names off the top of my head. I don't know. Is Billy Barty even still alive?
No.
Yeah,
he passed away.
I didn't think so. But still, Willow could be the new version of him.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do have a suggestion for Elora, she's a bit younger.
Okay.
Let me
you gonna get a picture?
Yeah.
Oh, Tony Cox would be good. The guy from Friday.
Okay.
The actress's name is Eleanor Tomlinson. She is known for the TV series Poldark, and also she was in Colette with Keira Knightley. Let me put up. That's her, the redhead. She's about 27.
Okay, but
Mhm.
that's the right age range. Again, I think anybody from 25 to 35 would fit
Yeah.
the part very well.
Yeah, but she's quite good. What do you have going on with the background, Steve?
Yeah, I'm learning to functionality for
Learn how to screen share.
yeah, I'm getting better at running this StreamYard thing, so in coming weeks maybe we'll have a little bit more flashy stuff going on.
Mm.
But yeah,
Oh,
I actually think that she would be a really good choice. So that's my vote. But I actually don't think that I was joking around before that I don't think Emma Stone would be a bad choice either. Because she can do period. Because she was in the movie The Favorite. She was great in that.
Right on.
mhm.
Okay. I mean, I think she's a fine choice. Again, I'm not familiar with her work, but if she can sort of like, all I gotta say is whoever plays Elora Danan needs to have really strong natural charisma. Because let's face it, that baby was her facial reaction shots. You could read the emotion of that 4-month-old child very clearly. And I
Yeah.
think it's something that you really need to make sure you get an expressive lead for that part.
Yeah. She didn't have any lines, but she certainly made her opinions known.
Yes. Did you? I hope you all appreciated how I worked Kira into the conversation without actually suggesting her.
I'm trying to full disclosure, I'm not a Whovian, so I don't know the answer to this. I'm not even sure whether or not young crone. I'm going to assume you're a lady because you identify as crone. So if I'm incorrect, let me know. But I'm not even sure this isn't a word you just made up. If I'm being banana coffee latte.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
You and me both, Kelly. A wee spot for gingers. Yeah. Anyway, I haven't seen anything else really pop up in the chat that we need to discuss. I think I've hit all the highlights of what I needed to talk about. John, Nessie, you got anything else?
Just, this was a great opportunity to revisit this movie. And like I said before, I hadn't seen it in high definition before, and that was a real pleasure. It's a beautiful film.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. It had been maybe a decade and a half since I watched it. Maybe a decade. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun to go back to. Nessie?
Yeah, it was a nice to visit that time of, our lives and to see what things that we were enjoying then and like look at it with, 30 years down the road and say, I enjoyed it, and it was for what it was. It was a good film. I wasn't disappointed that that we, just that we chose this one. So I had a good time.
I did too. And remember, this is the one you guys chose. There was a Twitter poll, and this is the movie that was chosen. So I thank you for choosing it. I had such a great time revisiting this movie after so long. So that being said, I think we'll move to the end. I don't really have anything else. So yeah, to everybody who showed up today, thank you for joining us. We had 20 to 25 people all afternoon, and that's pretty good. I appreciate you all. If you haven't hit the like and subscribe, go ahead and do that. I'd appreciate it. Next week, same time, Sunday, May 3rd, we're having a May the 4th be with you pre-party. So yes, come join us and several other special guests for some Star Wars Love Fest action. regular time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern United States time on Sunday. The weekend.
It's going to be so much fun just because there's so much. I mean, and I'm not making a comment on what's deserving or not deserving, but there is a lot of, division and sort of hate in the Star Wars community.
We won't be talking about any of that.
It's going to be great just to talk about what we love.
Right.
There's so much to love. There's so much.
If there are things about Star Wars that I don't love, and there are, I'm just not going to discuss them. It's meant to be a celebration of the things we love about Star Wars. So I hope you'll join us for that. One last quick thing, John, Nessie, anything you're working on coming up? What's next for you guys?
Go ahead, Ness.
Oh, well, I've got a few ideas. I had some questions that popped up on some of my streams that I thought maybe I could address in future content. There was some really good questions. I can't remember the viewer's name, and I'm so sorry if you're listening to this, regarding the Isle of Faces and so two very, I love talking about that kind of stuff. So I think maybe I might dive into that and see if I can answer her question, which was with both Bran and Bloodraven being such powerful green seers, why did Bloodraven never make it out to the Isle of Faces? So I'd like to maybe dive into that.
Cool. Look forward to that. How about you, Tom? What's coming up?
Before I mention what I have coming up, I do want to say, since I've talked about the musical score for this film quite a bit this stream, if any of you guys are big fans of the score, there is an old CD that you can still track down for the music, but it's very short. So I want to take this opportunity that if you are a film score lover and you would love to have an expanded release of the score, go to this website and contact them. Entrada Records, they handle a lot of Disney owned film scores, and they are the ones that you're going to want to spam with emails and tweets and stuff if you're interested in having a full expanded release of the score to Willow. I know I do. There's probably only like 30 to 40 minutes worth of music on the original album, and that is not enough for this movie. The music is so amazing, and we should have more of it. So if you want it, these are the people to get in contact with. And as for what I have coming up, again, I'll mention next week on Friday. It's pushed back again. It's actually this coming week, rather.
Yeah.
On Friday, I'm going to be talking the Kenneth Branagh version of Hamlet with Shakespeare of Thrones. And
that's on April Fool's Day.
Oh my God, is it? Did I really do that?
You really did that.
No, sorry, it's not a joke. I swear, it's actually.
You're trolling us, John. You're trolling us.
Unless Lauren is pulling an April Fool, and I'm going to be doing it alone. Hopefully, that's not the case. But the week after that, that'll be on Thursday again. I will be talking Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is like my favorite, not only my favorite Harry Potter film, but is my favorite film of 2004. I am a huge fan of that film, and I will be discussing it with my good friend Hannah from the Game of Owns podcast. So I'm really looking forward to that a lot. And and I've got some other stuff on the horizon, and I'll let you know about it as we get closer.
Okay. I really like how John is still not caught on that it's not April the 1st. That's this Friday. It's May 1st this Friday. April Fools, buddy. April Fools.
God, Stephen.
Oh, I love
it's
you,
getting
man.
to the point where it's getting to the point where I just can't trust anything you say, Stephen.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm cracking myself up over here. I'm cracking myself up. All right. John, Nessie, as always, it's fabulous to have you guys here. Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you guys next week when we talk about Star Wars. I look forward to seeing everybody in the chat next week when we talk about Star Wars. All the old people that we see every week, and maybe some of the new friends we made this week. I'm looking at you, young crone. So hopefully we'll see you all next week. And until then, you know what it is. Peace. And be excellent to each other.
Bye.
Bye.